do you want?
Tacos!
When do you need it?
Now!
1, 2, 3, go! Yes! Woo! Metalheads, I'm Johnny Tacos, and this is the Johnny Tacos Show! Movies, music, and madness, let's mosh!
What's up, guys? Johnny Tacos here with another exciting and informative episode of the Johnny Tacos Rock Talk. And today, we have Pennsylvania's finest, Willy Blaze, part of the Willy Blaze, the Bad News crew. And you know what? The good news is we finally got a chance to sit down and talk. We've been sitting around here. We've been trying to get our schedule straight. Now the moon is in line with the sun, or whatever them new age people say. Right. And we are able to sit down and have a chat. We're going to talk about his solo stuff, a little bit about his life, about how music really shaped him, and how this outlaw heavy metal music, hard rock music, just came to fruition into it. And we'll get into all that. But I just want to say real fast, thank you all for supporting the show. Without you, I'll be talking to the wall, and I give my wife ample enough ammunition to lock me away for good. If y'all know someone that loves music, that loves talk, that loves just two guys, or a guy that sounded weird. No, I'm saying that if you like, just sit down and talk about music, laugh, have a good time. You know some friends that would, please share this show on all your socials. I'm on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Share that with the people, and that helps me out with the algorithm. I guess the nerds say the algorithm. And it reaches out to more, and it helps me promote bands such as Willy Blaze's solo project here. And it's, you know what, this solo project is awesome, dude. When I heard the new song that we'll talk about here a little bit into the show, man, it feels like it comes from the soul. And that's what the kind of music that I really love, is music that is emotional driven, because that's when you know the person who wrote the music really, really means what they do, and they have that passion to pull out the music. And I can't wait to hear more new stuff that's coming up. And I bet you, we'll get some updates and some news about that here soon. Also, give a shout out to the Street Taco crew that goes out there and promotes this show. If you want to be a part of the Street Taco team, hit me up on Instagram, DM me. I'll get you set up. If you talk sweet to me, maybe I'll get you a t-shirt so you can pimp it out and have people wondering, hey, who is this Johnny Tacos, and why does he look so good on your shirt? So, and it's also a great icebreaker if you think about it. If you're over there spying in somebody's window, and they see you, they catch you, and they see you wearing that Johnny Taco show, they might even forget that you had a little stalkery going on. So, you know what? I'm here to bring people together. And I guess that's all. That's all right now. I don't have really a lot of news going on with besides I just scored some VIP tickets to see my friend Scooter playing a full album on Cold, and Alien Ant Farm is opening up for them. So it's going to be pretty awesome. If you want to see me, take a picture with me, I'll be May 9th at the Curtain Club in beautiful Deep Ellum. So come out, chill out with me. We'll get, we'll have a beer, or, eat some tacos, man. There's a taco place right across the street from the Curtain Club. So it's going to be pretty awesome. Also, Raw's coming to town, and I got tickets for them. Go see Saj and his band. It'll be pretty cool to see him again. I talked to him for a little bit like 10 years ago. We kind of got out of touch, but we'll meet up and chill out. And if you want to meet me over there, it's going to be at the Bomb Factory. So hopefully that show won't bomb, but we don't know. We don't know until we know. All right, enough of that. We got the Blazer himself, Willy Blaze, in the house today.
Yes,
Hey,
sir.
welcome
Yes,
to
sir.
the show, man.
I appreciate being here, brother. I really do, man.
So tell me a little bit about this band here and who all you have helping you out.
Yeah, so this is Willy Blaze and the Bad News Crew is the name of the band. It's my solo band. This is a passion project of mine. It's me on vocals. As far as the bandmates, man, I'm very fortunate to have one of the best backing bands on this side of Mississippi, and I put bread on that. My drummer Ammo, my guitar player Grasshopper, my bass player Sweetness. All of these guys have done some amazing things. Sweetness was touring for years in a band called Zero King out of Kentucky. Myself, Grasshopper, and Ammo all come from more of the hardcore scene before this. This is a more hard rock project, but they're still very involved in the hardcore scene. And they're both in kind of popular bands in their own right. Ammo plays drums in a band called Streets of Rage, and then Grasshopper plays guitar in a band called Decoy. So, if anyone listening is into really heavy stuff, on the more hardcore side, definitely something worth checking out. But yeah, this is just, a collective meeting of the minds of guys, who come from the extreme side of music, but are into different things, into catchier things. And, I spent years of my life touring in the hardcore scene, the metal scene. I don't regret a second of it. I made some amazing memories, some amazing friends, a lot of good times. I got to go on tour with guys who, whose posters I had on my wall. But I don't know, man. I just felt like I wasn't getting my boxes checked, so to speak. The proverbial boxes. And I've always been a fan of more catchy music, more, I guess you would call it like radio palatable music. I'm a sucker for a big catchy chorus. I'm a country boy, so rock and roll was always a big thing for me. And 3 years ago, I decided to give it the old college try. I said, you know what, I'm gonna start writing some stuff. It feels like me, you know what I mean? It's still I can still throw the occasional mosh part, the occasional heavy riff in there, but it can still be just country enough to where my fellow country folks will tip their hat. But it's just metal enough, it's just rock enough to where the rockers can tip their hat to it as well. And I feel like I've achieved that with Willy Blaze and the Bad News Crew. And, even though the direction of stuff that I've been writing the last year or so has gone a little more heavy, it's just very much, this feels like the most me of anything that I've ever done. So that's kind of the best way to put it.
And when you say the most me, this is your opus, right? Your
Yes.
kind of like your baby. You do pretty much the vocals on there. You got this awesome lineup of guys that you handpicked together. Y'all, but what we talked about earlier is that y'all are kind of branched out.
Yeah, so we're all in 4 different states. That's why whenever anybody asks, where are y'all based out of, I love to say Pennsylvania because that's where I'm from. But it's hard for me to say as far as the band goes because I'm in Central Pennsylvania, part-time in Louisiana, drummers in South Carolina, bass players in Kentucky, and guitar players in Louisiana. So it's we're spread out, but we make it work, man. That's just what I think that when it's no different than put it this way, like a long distance relationship, because that's been the story of my life. I dated someone from Vegas the other year, and that that wasn't a bother to me. It was just a lot of flying, but I'm very big on if the connection is real, there's no distance that I'm not willing to go. And the same logic applies when it comes to the music. I mean, we are a well-oiled machine in and of its own, so it's like that. It don't bother me, man. I could, one of those guys that I mentioned could be in California, Arizona, Washington. It would, we'd find a way to make it work. You know what I mean? I really wouldn't want to be doing this without them. You know what I mean? Like you said, I handpicked this lineup for a very specific reason. Because I've spent many years of my life being on tour, and man, there's, I don't want to speak really ill on anyone individually because, you know, I've had a lot of great memories on tour, but man, I know what it's like to be trapped in a van with someone that I can't stand. And then it gets to a point where, you know, maybe things get rough, you know, towards the end of a run. And I'm not trying to glorify that, you know what I mean? I don't like, you know, bragging about, you know, having to find myself in physical situations with bandmates, but it just, you know, when it becomes crabs in the bucket with people where it's just confliction, I know that feeling. So for me, it was very important to not only put together a lineup of guys who I know are phenomenal players, but also people who, like, I could be comfortable being trapped in a vehicle with for the rest of my life. And I feel like I got that. I really do.
Yeah, because, you know, if you're in a van, you know, we'll say 3 months out of the year, going from point to point, bar to bar, concert to concert, man, you got to have some kind of commonality or some kind of chemistry, you know. But also it happens, you know. There's going to be squabbles within bandmates. You know, it's a family. You know,
brothers are always going to fight. That's an inevitable. You know, I certainly didn't feel like I was going to avoid that altogether by this. However, you know, we definitely do have a very sincere tie that binds as far as all of us in the band. Little girl, if you don't, I'm so sorry.
it's okay.
You gotta get out. Yeah, but that's another big thing too. You know what I mean? As you mentioned, the tie that bind. You know what I mean? So no, I'm very happy with this group of guys, man. I can't wait to. I'm currently embarking on a world takeover. Is what the intention is. You know, I'm here to take over the world, and I'm glad that I have that group of guys to do it with me. So,
like a new world disorder kind of thing.
Something like that. Yeah.
So you yourself are a veteran of playing shows and tours and all that. With all that knowledge that you had taken up through those years, do you think that it is beneficial to your solo?
Yes, 1,000%, man. Because listen, a frame of reference in life is everything. I was just talking with someone last night, and this particular person had mentioned that they have a hard time fooling with anybody who has maybe either lived a privileged life or an inexperienced life, because it's like, how do you have no frame of reference, when it comes to anything, and it's funny because when you hear something like that, you get to thinking about it, and I'm not going to claim to know your story, but I'll spare you the gory details of mine. But I had an interesting upbringing, and I've lived a very interesting life thus far. But I wouldn't change any of it, and it was so true. To where it's just like, I do find it hard, being around, the certain types of people who just really haven't lived life. So I say all that to say, like, when it comes to the touring thing, yeah, I couldn't fathom going into this project and without the knowledge that I've acquired and the experience I've acquired over the years of just what to do and what not to do. Because that's another thing too, you know what I mean? There's times where I'll get show offers that, I feel like I have to turn down more than I accept. But because all the signs and arrows point to similar experiences that I've had that I just knew were not beneficial, for us to engage in, to where it's very easy for me now to be like, hey, listen, I appreciate that offer, but we're going to respectfully decline. Or, when it comes to being on tour, knowing how to budget money, because that's the thing too, is that, like, I'm certainly not a rock star, man. When I say, like, I'm touring, even still, after all these years, a lot of times it's gas money and pizza, you know what I mean? And it's knowing, like, okay, how do I properly budget this? What do I do? Boom, 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 expenses. And yeah, so I think that having been on the road for so many years of my life has definitely given me a sense of, just a sense of wherewithal of, like, knowing what to do and what not to do. And I sure as hell know that when the day comes that I feel like I've reached a musical success, so to speak, you know, to where then we're off to the races. I know it sure as hell gonna feel good. You know what I mean? Because I don't put it past the guys. I'm never one of those bitter old heads that's been grinding for years and still struggling to make it. I'm not one of those guys that will see a young band blow up on the internet and like just take off and feel some kind of way about that. You'll talk to some guys and they're like, they don't know what it's like to play the bar. It's like, let them have their moment, because you know damn well if that was you, you know, 20 years ago when you started doing your thing, you'd be happy as a pig and shit. Like why would you not? So at the end of the day, I don't ever get upset with that. However, I also know I'm going to cherish that success probably more so than what those guys are going to. You know, the guys who just shoot up overnight. You know, it's just they say you don't know peace until you suffered. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we've been out here suffering. So that peace is going to taste real sweet when it comes. You know.
Well, and you also know that if anything fires up real quick, it tends to fade away even quicker. You know, you get
That's
that
true, dude.
slow
That's
burn
true.
where you start working on your craft, and you start working on just getting your routine done the way you like it, because eventually you're going to catch on to people that have that similar mindset
That's right.
that enjoys your music, and then they start rolling up, and then you, before you know it, you know, you got that part in your life where you can actually sit back and say, you know what, I'm finally here.
That's it. That's it. That the old concept of the cult fan base, you know what I mean? And
Uh-huh.
that's where it's funny, you know, you'll see the bands like obviously one of my favorite bands, you know, it shines pretty true with my music, is like a Seven Dust, you know what I mean? Who like everyone, any comment section on any video of theirs will always say criminally underrated, or like it's crazy how this band never was bigger than it was. But it's like, but then again, I worked concert security for so many years. You know, so much of my, you know, early and you know, through my 20s was working, you know, was bouncing at you know, concert venues. And I couldn't tell you how many times I've worked security for guys who were once selling out arenas, who were playing in front of 300 people on a Saturday night, you know. And I'm not, listen, if they're still working, that's awesome. You know what I mean? They're still putting on a good show. But it's like there's a roller coaster of their career that often requires an up and then a down. I look at a band like the one that I just mentioned, Seven Dust, to where it's like they kind of got to a certain height. It was never up here. It was just right here. But they have maintained that the entire time. Longevity for 20, 30 years, have stayed at a relatively similar level. That's almost virtually unheard of in the music industry anymore. And for me, I'm like, I love that. Or what I do love is you'll see these bands who were like, they had massive mainstream success, but what they did during that time was they amassed that cult following. And then when they quote unquote fell off the face of the earth, people will say, what happened to this band? What happened to that band? But then you look into them and you realize they're still touring. They're still selling out 500 to 1,000 cap rooms every night, because they utilized that success that they had, that massive appeal, and they garnered that cult following, and now they're able to just run off of that forever. And that, to me, like I said, so I don't care if I'm ever the biggest thing since sliced bread and squeezed milk. I don't necessarily care that that's ever the case for me. More so, I just want longevity. I want to be able to do this until I'm old and gray, or until I decide that I don't want to do it anymore. And I don't want this to just be a fleeting moment for me. So I'm working really hard on the back end to ensure that that's the case.
So you were talking about a fan base. From your previous bands, do you have any fans from there that kind of migrated to you since when you moved on?
I think, you know, it would be impossible for me to say no, because, but again, you have to remember, most everything I did prior to this, and by most I mean exclusively, was in the hardcore scene, the metal world. So yeah, there are some people, you know, who will come out to see us play, who I remember used to see Split play, or, you know, Your Nightmare Awaits, or Signs of Hope, any of these bands that I used to be in prior. But maybe that's more on like a personal friend type deal, because at the end of the day, you know, when you talk about music scenes that, like, especially like a hardcore scene where people are just invested. That's like a lifestyle for them. They don't really tend to stray too far from that when it comes to, concert going and or even just listening in general. So I knew that I really was starting fresh over here. When I came over, to this side of the fence, I knew I remember even saying to people, I'm a new kid on a new playground right now, and I got something to prove and I'm going to make something happen. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I'm still having to learn the playing field. And that was another thing that was definitely, it didn't matter how much cool shit I did on one side of the fence, that now that I'm over here, none of that really translated. You know what I mean? I thought that when I put the first Bad News Crew single out, that I was going to wake up the next day and I was just going to be wild viral and it was going to blow up. And it was like, oh yeah, it didn't matter how cool you were over here, man. That, you're still starting from ground floor over here. So that was a, I don't want to say a hard pill to swallow, because I don't move with entitlement. You know what I mean? I'm very like, kind of got that warrior spirit, like nothing's going to stop me either way. But I think it was a humbling experience for me. So I know it's a long-winded response to your question, but not as many people came over from other sides of the fence to hear as maybe what I would have liked. But that doesn't really bother. I don't really lose too much sleep over that, because again, I'm building what I need to build right now, and I'm happy.
Well, that's a good answer, because that it's supposed to be about you. You're first, because it's your band and the way you want to do it, and if you attract your fans by how you take care of your band, how you present yourself, and as well. And me growing older, I started getting a different palettes for different types of music. I grew up listening in my teen years, listening to Suicidal Tendencies, and then
Yeah.
Mike Murs, Infectionist Grooves, when he had that going on.
Oh, that was so Infectious Grooves with I think Robert Trujillo did that with him too. There was that was so dope. That whole, like, also too, on a side note, man, that there was that wild era in the 90s of that like funk metal, you know what I mean? It was like Infectious Groove, even like George Clinton with like Parliament.
Yeah.
Kind of like, had some edgier shit that like those kids were going. And because I remember seeing clips from like the 80s and 90s where people were like moshing at P-Funk shows. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, Infectious Grooves was definitely dope. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm actually going to have to go listen to them as soon as I get off of this.
And if you think about it, the old Red Hot Chili Peppers back before they became like pop, they had that hardcore kind of like groove kind of feel, because of the way Flea plays his bass.
That's it.
So
it is funny too that you mentioned that, because another side note, somebody brought it up. I was up in Michigan last week shooting some content, and one of the producers brought up a good point where he said we're kind of in an era of music where there's no, like, the concept of the rock star is almost non-existent anymore. And that no matter how many bands are out there, he's like, how many bands anymore now, are on top of the world, that like every single member of the band has their own unique personality, and like you know who they are. Mm-hmm. And he was like, and he said to me, he was like, think about it, Red Hot Chili Peppers. He was like, give me the lineup. And I'm like, I think it's Anthony Kiedis, Flea. And I'm not like the biggest Peppers fan either, but I know it's Anthony Kiedis, Flea, John Frusciante, and then, Chad Smith. And he was like, okay, so you know how you know every single one of their names, because you acknowledge that like each one of those people is a core part of the unit. And it's just like, and you look back and you're like, holy shit, you're right. That is almost a foreign concept anymore nowadays. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I didn't mean to like sidetrack what you were saying, but you brought up the Peppers, and I was like, he had used them as a really good example as far as that goes. And I think that's why it's so imperative for me that, the Bad News Crew, it might be my passion project, but my guys, I try and include them in every aspect as possible. Because I want people to know Ammo, Grasshopper, Sweetness. I want them to know these faces and these names, and for them to be like this enigmatic personality that when they come see Willy Blaze and the Bad News Crew play, you're not just concerned with just me. You know what I mean? Like that. So yeah.
Yeah, because it happens. You have these bands that have revolving doors, and it works out sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. There's when Lane Staley passed away, they got this new cat that kind of tried to sound like him. I forgot that guy's name.
He's good though. I'm not gonna lie
Yeah,
to
but
you.
he's no Lane, because if you listen to Lane's lyrics and how his voice is, you can kind of follow through what he was feeling at that time. I know
That's
he
true.
was drugged out of his mind, like
Right, right.
the most of the time during Alice in Chains, but the way his lyrics were, um, it you can feel it. It's like anybody that makes a project, it's kind of hard to push away. Like Joey Belladonna and Anthrax, when they had
Yep, yep.
John, was it John from Iron Saint, pop up for Fear of White Noise when he
Right,
sang
right,
for them. It was a different feel than what Joey's Anthrax was.
right. Or if we're
And-
talking that genre, or like when what's his name, Ripper Owens was on them couple Judas Priest albums when Ron
yeah,
Halford did the fight thing. Yeah, but it's also put in the spirit of debate in that concept, in that lane, and then even what you mentioned earlier with like Alice in Chains. Are we as massive fans of these bands, in particular these lineups and these individuals, to expect that that band is supposed to just cease to exist beyond that individual? And I think that's why sometimes guys like you and I, we latch so deeply onto those individual personalities that we're like, oh, it just don't sound right. Or like, I remember I worked security years ago, and it was a big convention center show. It was Sublime. It was when they were doing Sublime. It was called Sublime with Rome,
with
and I guess it
Rome,
was
yeah,
yeah,
with
yeah,
Rome from Dirty Heads, yeah.
yeah. And I thought it was awesome, but man, there were so many people that were like, now I don't like I'm. They're not into it. There was like a group of people that almost went to like essentially boo, and that was the thing. We had to like throw them out because they were just disrupting the whole thing. I remember thinking like, I don't understand what the big deal is, but it's the same concept. So I'm not trying to say that you're wrong for feeling the way that you feel, but I'm the open-minded guy to where I'm like, I can't expect Alice in Chains not to continue to go on, or I couldn't really expect Anthrax to cease to exist because Joey wasn't a part of it. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I have to say, I really enjoyed that Fear of White Noise album,
Yeah, yeah.
but it just, to me, it wasn't the same kind of recipe as the Anthrax before it. Like what was that? Persistence of Time. How that kind of worked out, and then you listen to that time period. It was a different kind of feel. The Fear of White Noise is more darker. I would say a little darker, a little more emotional. That's what
Sure.
John brought into the whole thing. It's just like Motley Crue when Vince had that whole thing where he was away from Motley Crue for a while, and they had I can't even remember that guy that took over for that little bit.
Who was that? I don't remember that at all.
I
What was
can't
that?
remember. Here, let me pull it up. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm got my ADD going.
Well, while you look into that, it sounds to me like it was a lot of like what the hell was it? Van Halen and Sammy Hagar. That's another example right there. You know what I mean? Where, and Sammy Hagar is a beast on the microphone, man. But like I said, people were hating because it was, you know.
Yeah, and I'm still, yeah, and I enjoyed both. David
Sure.
and Sammy. They both brought in their own kind of music to it. Uh, let's see. John Coraby. He did a brief a brief couple albums with Motley Crue.
No shit. When was that? Probably in the 90s.
Let's see. I'm thinking, yeah, it was like 90s. It was before. It was after Dr. Feelgood.
Okay.
It was like around Generation Swine era, and that was like 97. So it was probably 94.
And who was he? Was he in anything noteworthy prior to that?
He was in
He had to be, because
Scream.
he wasn't just a stranger off the street to join one of the biggest, metal bands in the world.
Yeah, he was in Vampires, Angels, City Outlaws, Brides of Destruction,
Rise of
Union.
Destruction, I remember
Yeah,
them. Yeah.
The Scream, and Rat. He was in Rat. Yeah, that's what it was.
Oh,
He was in Rat. So,
he wasn't the main guy from Rat. What's that guy's name?
um, you're
It's not
talking
him.
about crap. Stephen Percy.
Steve Percy, that's what it was. Because he would
Yeah.
listen. As someone, again, having worked concert security as long as I did, I worked security for like almost all the B-list hair metal bands. And when I say B-list, not like the Motley Crue Poison, but like, man, I've worked for Rat, Striper, Jackal, LA Guns, Bullet Boys, like all those like ones that were just like, they were big. And again, being from central Pennsylvania, just over the Maryland line, we had Kicks, you know what I mean? And Kicks
I
still
know
does.
Kicks, yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And bro, listen, let me tell you something. That's another thing too. Kicks still to this day in this area is so big that at the concert venue that I used to work at before it got shut down with COVID, when they would do their annual show here, it got so big that they would have to do a double weekend because it would sell out, like, and it's like it was almost 1,000 cap room. It's not no small hole in the wall room. It's like, they play 10 times a year, so like once a month basically, around the same kind of tri-state region, and they are packing rooms out and they're having a blast. They're making stupid money because, again, at that point they're taking like 100% of the door. So I got to give all the credit in the world. I think but Kicks was like a hometown type thing here, and because central Pennsylvania and northern Maryland has bred a ton of the biggest artists that people wouldn't even realize. So we were spoiled with that. But the one thing that I know about that era of music that I've noticed too is that even though musically these guys weren't reinventing the wheel, they weren't doing anything like overly complex, but they were some of the best players in the world. Every hair metal show I've ever worked, I am, as a guitar player, as a musician, I'm enamored with how good of musicians these guys are. It's insane because they come from an era of music where, like, you had to be good. You had to be good at what you did. You know what I mean? You couldn't half-ass it like you could do today. It didn't really have studio magic like that back then. You know what I mean? It was, Stephen Percy. That's right, man. God, he was one of my favorite.
And the person that got me into listening to Kicks, because I was trying to remember what that single was.
They had a couple. What the hell?
Don't close your eyes. Don't close your eyes.
That's it.
And really, that was the only one that really hit big in the Texas area was that song. And the first time I ever heard it, I woke up. I was in high school. I woke up and my grandmother was listening to a rock station because she was trying to win money back in the day. Call in and win money.
Caller number 9. Yep.
And that song came on, and I was kind of dozed off a little bit, but I heard that song, and that song was like really awesome, and that's what really turned me on to Kicks, because that is a really well performed song. The lyrics were on cue. The music was had that kind of melody that kind of followed in with the lyrics, and it worked just right. And when you were saying like hometown heroes and all that, Jackal sells out here in Texas. Jesse James, Dupree, and his band, Jackal's been here, and they only made maybe a couple albums, and they still sell out. People want to hear that.
Yep. And he
their
still
their
does
song.
he still does that chainsaw shit too, man. And
Yeah.
people lose their minds when they do that. And that's like I said, man, we central Pennsylvania might be, what people would consider a flyover area. It's very country, very rural. And I love it like that. But it is amazing how many massive, big artists that this area, has bred. I mean, we're talking hair metal right there. Bret Michaels, you know what I mean? That was,
Uh-huh.
he's from here. He's from Mechanicsburg. Look at Breaking Benjamin has been on top of the world for how long? Sealands Grove, Hailstorm,
Oh yeah.
Live.
The Hell family. Yeah.
Yeah, the Hail Fam, Live, Fuel. We're talking the '90s. The Badleys had a big run and everything like that. There's been look at who's the country singer that's on top of the world right now. Warren Zeders, man. Warren Zeders from
Uh-huh.
Hershey, Pennsylvania. And like that's just a couple. And then in like the metal world, I mean, geez, you got August Burns Red, Texas in July, all these bands that are just killing it. There's hip hop artists too. Like I said, Little Skies is from Chambersburg. There's the Foundation was from Lancaster. There's so much talent here, even here now, currently on a local level. But just it's wild to think these artists whom have made this massive impact in the music world that are from central Pennsylvania. Now, the couple of them that I mentioned were able to break out of central Pennsylvania, and I don't put it past the people that have to migrate to a bigger city, go to the Nashvilles or to the Atlantas or Los Angeleses to find their quote unquote big break. I'm not knocking that. If that's what it takes for you to make it happen, bless your heart. But I'm determined, I think, to be one of those ones that like I can take it to my grave saying that no matter where I end up in the world, that I was able to make my success and find my success while still being here planted in central Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
Because I always love those type of stories. You know what I'm trying to say? I have such a profound level of respect for that.
yeah. And when you were talking about Fuel and Breaking Benjamin, they kind of branched to the California side. I'm not gonna, you know, I, I'm not gonna judge them.
No,
No,
and that's what I'm saying.
you got to roll with where you got to go to try to make it in this
Yeah,
world.
and
So,
I'm sure Warren Zeters had to migrate to Nashville. But again, like I said, we talked about Fuel. I mean, our Fuel Live. You know what I mean? Live was always rooted here. You know what I mean? That was another one right there. Like I said, Hailstorm. Geez, man. I remember like Hailstorm is from Red Lion, Pennsylvania, which is it's a cool little town, but it is a very central Pennsylvania little town. And I remember again, seeing Hailstorm, play at the Chameleon Club when they were still grinding. And, they grinded it out here. And I love that. I have such a level of respect for that. Like I said, you and I both mentioned, I'm not hating on anybody that has to go abroad to find, their footing. But I'm determined to be one of those ones that do it here. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I'm so Pennsylvania. I mean, I wrote a song about it. You know what I mean? It's just one of them things where it would almost feel hypocritical for me to feel like I'd have to go to a Nashville or go to somewhere else to be able to find that big break when I know I can do it here.
Yeah.
And I'm making it happen as we speak. You know what I mean? So
And we have the internet. We have internet
that's it. That's
rolling
it.
through that can feed anywhere all over the world. But really, man, we got to talk about your new song, the newest song, "Dream."
Okay.
The song that kind of like pulled me in because we're getting close to the end of the show, and you know what? I'm not going to starve the fans from listening to it. We're going to throw a little clip of it here at the
Of
end of the
course.
show,
Of
just
course.
kind of wet their beak to get into your music. Um, was this song kind of hit close to you? Was this a personal song?
It is the most deeply personal song I've ever written. I think I know you had to ask that for the sake of the podcast, but in my head I was like, you know the answer to that when you asked it. No, it is the lousiest circumstances always seem to make for the best art. You know what I mean? And now that said, I'm still an artist and a songwriter. I can write a sad song even if I'm happy. I would like for the rest of my life for that to be the case. You know what I mean? Any sad song that I write, I can just channel something from previous. But that one was, yeah. To try and like paraphrase it as best as possible without getting too deep. I was in a really, really great relationship with an incredible woman. Not enough good things to say about her. I think that where I was at the time, I was very focused on, I think the way I could theorize it is, I was so focused on being the ideal companion that I wasn't focused enough on being the ideal partner. Meaning all of the things that I have going on in my life, music, my family, the brotherhood, all that, this particular person just not only embraced all those aspects about me, but like supported and was my biggest cheerleader when it came to that. And I love that so much, but the handful of things about her that were so very much a part of her at the core, I kind of was just like, that's your thing. That's your thing. And that's cool at first, but then it gets to a point as time goes on where you realize how one-sided you're being. And it wasn't like a tumultuous split. It was one of those things that it was like hindsight being what it is. You know, hindsight's one of my biggest friends and biggest enemy in my life. And I should have seen the signs and arrows. Like there were massive blinking neon light billboards that, you know, I should have seen throughout the course of the relationship that just made me be like, hey man, you know, don't screw this one up. And I did. And when I realized what, you know, where I had gone awry, it was just kind of too late, you know. And like I said, she's doing, but this was also quite a while ago. And yeah, I just did what I needed to do and turned my pain into art. And it was one of those things where, you know, and anyone, I know people watching this might be like, oh, you know, everyone goes through a breakup. But, you know, after my kid's mother and I had split, I did a lot of soul searching. I took a lot of time out the game and I did what I could to get, you know, myself right mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So I knew that when the time came that I embarked into a romantic situation with somebody, it was like, I'm determined to make this the thing. And I thought I had it. And, but because of shortcomings on my own part, screwed it up. Now we all deal with that, but you know, fortunately for me as a musician, I have the ability to be able to turn that into song. And I did. And I wrote it at the time. Now, mind you, do my current feelings reflect, you know, that? No, you know what I mean? I've since moved on. I'm happy. I'm doing my thing. But I don't regret writing it because it was absolutely what I needed at the time. It was the most therapeutic thing that I think I had ever done. And people have hit me up since I've put it out and just been like, man, just kind of like what you and I were talking about earlier, how that really resonated with the situation that I went through, or I've never been through anything like that myself. However, I was feeling it vicariously through you. And yeah, because that was just, I'm happy with that. I don't want to make anyone else sad. You know what I'm saying? I don't really make a habit of writing, you know, sad songs. I tried my best to still make it heavy. You can still bang your head to it, but yeah, Dream was a real lesson for me, man. You know what I mean? It was.
And you know, just because, you know, it's an emotional song doesn't mean that you can't just jam to it. You can't just bang your head like you said. You know, it has some awesome screaming in there, has some awesome riffs. You know, the drums are just like heart pounding. You know, it takes you
Thank
on a
you.
trip. And the video right there, it just shows like you're over there singing right in front of the video screen, and it just shows like an independent film, kind of like an emotional roller coaster. What, like, you start off in this like a pleasant thing, and then you go through the whole kind of way to the end. You know, from the beginning it's all roses, and then all of a sudden you start seeing the thorns in the rose. I hate to quote Poison, but you know.
No. I'm glad you pointed that out too, because I had the option to be able to just shoot a standard performance music video with everybody, but I talked to the guys and was like, hey, I'm gonna shoot something for Dream, but I feel like I got to do something to convey the emotion. So I think this might just be a solo thing. And they were like, yeah. And then when I talked to Brian, our brother, that's Bad News Family right there, Brian Colon, who directed the video. I said, man, I want to do something that's really going to convey this. And we decided on just a straight through performance take and no extra lighting, no nothing. It was very minimal edits. It was about as raw as any quote unquote music video can be. And I'm really happy that we went with that because I feel like it truly conveys the emotion of the song. And it's funny too, because that's why I said, I don't know. I'm not some pretentious artsy whatever. I'm a dirty outlaw biker. So it's one of the things that like, I don't really put as much thought into that kind of shit as maybe I should. So I'm really happy that it came out the way that it did because I don't know that there was that much thought put into it. So I'm glad that you noticed that too.
Yeah, and I noticed like where you filmed it in, it kind of brings the emotion of what it's supposed to be about.
Yeah.
And I could see that. And you might say, "Hey, I'm not so artsy and all that," but yeah, I see it right there, and it's a really awesome one. And like I said, we're going to be playing that towards the end. Real fast, I'm running out of time.
Sorry, bro.
You got any new songs coming up?
Yes, sir. So last year I did 2 features with a band that's like massive on the internet. They're called State of Mind, MINE, and they did so well that they asked me to come back and do more. So I'm not going to say the particular number, but I have a handful of features. That's what I was just doing in Michigan last week, was shooting a couple music videos. So I think the first one of those features that I'm doing with them again this year is going to come out, I think, late April, early May. And there's going to be a slew of them that drop throughout the year. So most of 2026 is going to be features with State of Mind. As far as personal Bad News Crew stuff, man, I'm working on one, and I'm pretty proud of it. I can say it here. I have some talented children. One of my sons and one of my daughters are just exceptional when it comes to the microphone. And our drummer Amo's son, he's got a hell of a scream, and he is his father's shadow for sure, man. He's a little mosh warrior. So needless to say, we decided, we need to do something for the kids. So we're gonna do a very there's no working title to the song yet, but it's very heavy. One of our heavier ones that we've done, and it's going to feature 3 of the Bad News children on the song. You know what I mean? Because I'm trying to do what I can do as a father and an uncle, to Emo's son, to try and foster, the next generation of the Bad News Crew, man. And because that's what this is. This Bad News Crew thing is not just a clever name for my band. I mean, that's the family, man. That's my producer, my graphics guy. We have a real tight knit thing going on here, and my kids are all aspiring rock stars, and I'm not quite there yet. But at the end of the day, if I can give them my platform to be able to springboard that, I'll absolutely do it. So yeah. I can't wait. I can't wait for y'all to hear that.
Awesome, man. Hey, just hold tight. Dude, man, if you want to hit up any of the socials, look for Willy Blaze, and check out the Instagram. Man, I'm selling old. Check out the Instagram and the Faces books and my books and all that stuff. Check out the YouTube. I'll put a link at the bottom for the full video of Dream. You know what? This is awesome, dude. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, man.
Music should be a family, like Willie said. Keep it in the generations and generations, and we're supposed to help lift up our children to overcome what we couldn't. We should urge them to do better than what we have done in our life. With our experience and our wisdom, should be able to kind of pave their way into being a better person, a better rock star, just all around, just a better human being, with all this in store, you know, keep metal going, dude. Metal has bridged a lot of times with me, and what I go through, you know, what I went through as a kid, you know, yeah, Johnny Tacos was a kid one time. I still am a kid if you ask my wife. But metal music has bridged, and it's always a great icebreaker too. So, you know, pull out your old albums, your old CDs, your A tracks if you're that old, and just show them to your kids and say, hey, this is the root. This is the beginning of what is you're listening to now, so they can appreciate what music is.
That's what I do. On a side note, my son is a total new metal head now, and it which tickles me pink because that's the era that's what got me into heavy music. That was my transition in, and so he is that one where every week he'll send me some link and be like, "Did you ever hear of these guys? Have you ever heard of these guys?" And you know, and every time I sound like the cool guy because I'll be like, yeah, I saw him in '97, or yeah, I
Yeah.
saw him in a basement in 2000. It's just like, but I love his passion, or even my daughter too, who's a total alternative girl. You know, all my kids are all little alternative kids, and it just like I love their excitement to discover new things, and you know, their genuine appreciation, you know, because I was playing that for them, you know, all while I was raising them, you know what I mean? And I don't think it quite resonated back then, but I think the seed was planted early enough to where now it has blossomed into something. And you know, we're all eclectic, we're all across the board, genre wise. But that said, like, this is really where my home is, and I'm just doing what I can to try and foster that for them too. So
Awesome. Thanks again, Willie. And guys, hold on. And like I said, if you like what you hear, you made it all the way down here to get to the music, man. Hit subscribe, share, do all that stuff. Just keep this show going. I want to thank everybody else for staying this long. It is awesome. Thank you so much. I can't imagine how much love I've been getting about this show, and how many people have reached out to me and said, hey, thank you for introducing me to this band, and thank you for introducing me to this person, and just it's awesome. So all right, I'm done with my babbling. Let's get to dreaming because I'm getting tired. Let's get out of here.
Shit, I could wake up and it's all be just a dream. I feel the warmth in your touch underneath this shit. And see the calendar through that moonlight in February of 25. 'Cause tomorrow I could rewrite history. Now it wasn't just.
If you like this episode and you want to hear more, please like and subscribe to get the latest and the greatest from the Johnny Taco Show.